Well, some of you probably thought there were too many iPad screen sizes, right? No, we're just getting started. We need more. 7.9 inches, 10.2 inches, 10.5 inches, 11 inches, and 12.9 inches? No, we need more iPad screen sizes, and that's what the rumor is that Ming-Chi Kuo is talking about, and of course, I'm gonna do what I think the Apple sheep does best, needlessly and endlessly speculate on what I think it could mean. Let's begin. So, yeah, it's very complicated. I know Apple has distorted the iPad lineup in so many ways, with people undecided on, should I get the iPad Air, should I get the budget iPad, or there's also a certified refurbished iPad Pro I can get. Yeah, there's so many options to choose from. Apple's very passionate about this lineup, much more passionate than the iMac lineup, but I'm genuinely excited to see what this new refreshed iPad mini is, because some of you may forget, the iPad mini has never had a change in screen size. Even the budget iPad had a change in screen size when it went from 9.7 inches to 10.2 inches. iPad Air also went from 9.7 to 10.5. iPad Pro went from 9.7 to 10.5 to 11. 12.9 inch iPad Pro, okay, that one stayed the same for the most part over the past few years, but the form factor has changed. This iPad mini refresh sounds like it's going to be a form factor change as well as a screen size change. So Ming-Chi Kuo says that it's somewhere between 8.5 inches to 9 inches on a smaller sized iPad. So we, of course, are assuming that means bringing iPad Pro looking design to the smaller form factor, which I'm all for this because I reviewed the iPad mini last year and it was great. I thought it was really nice and comfortable having a display that was that tiny that you could hold in one hand, but you still had all of the benefits of iPadOS, whether it be split screen multitasking or picture-in-picture. You could do a bunch of things that your iPhone can't do because iPadOS is gaining more features every day, but have it in a form factor that was closer to that of the iPhone. And the only thing I didn't like about my iPad mini 5 was it used Touch ID and a standard home button. So if we're ditching the home button though, and we're embracing the Face ID sensors, in that case, yeah, I'm on board. That means basically you're gonna make the iPad Pro even smaller, perhaps even pocketable, and then maybe we could just ditch our iPhones, right? We got 120 hertz, we got USB-C, we got Face ID working in any orientation. I knew it would be a very small niche market, but I've always wanted an iPad Pro in the super compact form factor. This would by far be one of my favorite iPads if they ended up doing it. However, because I think the iPad Pro market is likely going to stay for the 11-inch and 12.9 inch designs, I'm guessing, I gotta be realistic here, that the iPad mini refresh is probably not going to be a Pro iPad. It's more than likely going to be just updating the iPad mini, which means not having the greatest CPU and probably not having nice things like 120 hertz or A12Z or A14X chip or something crazy like that. Maybe not even stereo speakers because the iPad mini has always been kind of aimed at being a cheaper device, so it's not supposed to come out until early 2021, so I guess they got some time to figure out what they want to do, but still, even if I don't get 120 hertz, I'm happy to hear that the iPad mini could be getting Face ID and it could be ditching the home button and bringing much needed uniformity, that's a word, right, to the iPad lineup, because right now the iPad Pros are amazing, it's just everything else feels super outdated. I mean, the iPad Air 3 came out over a year ago and it still hasn't been refreshed. Same with the iPad mini, that came out at the same time, but there's also a little bit in Ming-Chi Kuo's report about the next generation iPad Air. Some people think this is the next generation budget iPad. No, I don't think so. But reason being, Apple is also working on a 10.8-inch iPad, and the good news here is that Kuo is saying this should come out before the end of this year. So Kuo can get things wrong in his timelines a lot, so don't necessarily take his word for it, but it makes sense to me. I mean, iPad Air, like I said, it's over a year old, and we've got previous reports from Mecha Takara talking about an 11-inch iPad coming out, which I talked about in the past being the iPad Air 4. Kuo saying 10.8, so close. Makes me wonder if they're going to have a slightly design tweaked iPad Air 4, but fundamentally at the end of the day, it's still just going to be kind of a rebranded, dumbed down version of the 2018 iPad Pro, which will sell really well, and that's why they probably don't want to announce it yet, because they want people to think that the 2020 iPad Pros are pretty much the only way to get, 120 hertz, the Face ID on the iPads and everything, and those are all premium and nice, but once the iPad Air 4 drops, I think they will lose a lot of iPad Pro sales, because people are going to start saying, well, the front of the Air 4 looks somewhat similar to the iPad Pros, so I'll just go with the Air 4. If it's rumored to continue to start at $500, maybe they'll tweak the price a little bit, but I don't think they need to. If it's a 10.8-inch display, there's a few different ways I could interpret that. So for one, they could increase the size of of the bezel just a tiny bit. It would only take 0.1 inches across the whole perimeter of the 2018 iPad Pro to make it a 10.8 inch display. So maybe, I don't know, for the sake of cheaper manufacturing, maybe this iPad will be slightly thicker, which is dumb because it's named Air, but the iPad Pro is already thinner than the iPad Air. So we're beyond logic at this point. So they might increase the size of the side bezel a little bit just to make it look slightly cheaper than the iPad Pro. Or perhaps the iPad Air 4 is keeping the aspect ratio of 4:3 because it's easy to forget the 11-inch iPad Pros do not have an exact 4:3 aspect ratio. For whatever reason, I don't know why, Apple decided to make them a little bit taller with the 11-inch design, so maybe to keep some differentiation here, they wanted the iPad Air to be slightly shorter, so 10.8 inches instead of 11. I agree, it's confusing, but as I talked about before, this would have some dumbed down specs, so it would not be rocking an A12X chip, and they probably would not even want to give it an A13 chip when the iPad Pros are still rocking A12Zs. So I think it's very possible the iPad Air 4 might not get a CPU change. It will still be rocking an A12 chip for the sake of keeping it cheaper and worse than the iPad Pros, but it won't have stereo speakers, it won't have a great camera, it'll probably just be locked at 1080p, maybe not even get a camera bump, so from a design standpoint it might look really nice. And if you think it would be crazy for Apple to introduce a new iPad with the same CPU as last year, well, keep in mind that's exactly what they did with the budget iPad, okay? When the 2018 iPad came out, it had an A10 chip, and then in 2019 they refreshed the budget iPad. It also had an A10 chip. They didn't change it, so don't put it past them to reuse last year's CPU if it helps keep the price down, in which case the iPad Air 4 I think could easily become one of the most popular iPads out there because you'd still be rocking Face ID, you'd still be on gesture control, and I do think it would still rock USB-C, so this would be a solid overall great iPad, but I just hope they launch it this year and then maybe they'll refresh the budget iPad at the same time. There's no rumors of this is me guessing, but Apple has released a new budget iPad every single year since 2017, so more than likely they're gonna do something with that base model iPad probably in September or maybe a little bit after, but I'm guessing it won't be much of a design change. It'll probably keep that 10.2 inch display, maybe make it laminated because we've been asking for that for so long, but the non-laminated display I think is what helps keep that iPad so dang cheap. But if they did update it, maybe give it something like the A11 chip, and just don't expect much design or hardware improvements with the budget iPad this year. It's probably going to be CPU based, given right now they're selling an iPad in 2020 with an A10 chip, and I wonder how many more years of support that thing's gonna get. So they have to update that at some point this year. Makes sense to do it at the iPhone event. That's when they did it last year. But above all of this, I'm still mainly interested in the iPad mini refresh because I think it would make a really fun challenge for us to just ditch our iPhones for a while and start using the iPad mini, but with the thinner bezels and Face ID and everything. That would be a really fun, solid iPad that I wouldn't mind having that alongside my iPad Pro with Magic Keyboard, because this thing I'm starting to use more of a laptop now, so iPad mini could just be more of a dedicated tablet. So I don't know, first world problems obviously, but glad to hear this report. I hope the display sizes end up being true. Let me know what you guys would like to see by hitting me up over on Twitter, join my Discord, and please send me videos showcasing if you can talk faster than I can. It would be really funny. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.